Hi, I'm Carly Peterson. My husband Dennis and I have been members of Family of Christ for many years. Right now, I am the chair of the Micah 6-8 committee, and I'm also the Family of Christ representative for the racial justice team at the ELCA Minneapolis Synod. I am retired, and prior to getting that status, I worked for 30 plus years in education, and the last 20 of them I spent as an administrator for Minneapolis Public Schools. The beauty about being retired is that you can often get an opportunity to focus on your passions instead of all the work that you did as an employee. So in my retirement, I'm able to focus on racial justice, equity, and building strong communities. And it's not a big jump from those passions to loving your neighbor. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the fact that many of us have a large vocabulary in another language that we use nearly daily, and for the most part, we don't think about it. And some of those words I can think of are Mississippi, Owatonna, oh golly, Minneapolis, just so many words came from our native neighbors, the Ojibwe people and the Dakota people. And I'm just so surprised that we know so little about our indigenous populations here in Minnesota. So I just wanted to share some of those words with you. And if you don't mind me looking at my notes, because I couldn't remember them and I wanted to do honor to the pronunciation as best as I can. So for example, Minnesota is derived from a Dakota word, and it's Minnesota Makoche. And what that means is land where the waters reflect the sky. There's also, you can figure this one out. It is Chahassa. We say Chanhassen, but it means, well, what's on the water tower? It means tree with sweet sap, the maple tree. Shakpe is a Dakota word, and it means the number 6. Shakpe was a Dakota leader who, the legend has it, he was the 6th child born in the family, and so they gave him the name Shakpe, which is 6. Shakpe had a son, his firstborn son. His name was Chaskei, and that stands for firstborn son, and it also is the original name of Chaska. Aligned with that, the firstborn daughter was often called Winona. So just by the basis of their names, you knew where they were in the family. This one's harder for me, so it's Minnehaha Tonka. Okay, you know what that one is, Minnetonka. It means great water, which isn't a surprise. Wayzata was formed by a slight change from Wazitia, and that's Dakota, meaning at the pines. Even though many of these words we say every day, we anglicized them, made them more English. Maybe we didn't recognize that they were from our indigenous brothers and sisters. So I decided to do a little history because I didn't know much and thought I would share it with you. So here's what I found out. There are 2 major Native American tribes that have lived in Minnesota for centuries. The Dakota, also known as Sioux, and the Ojibwe, also known as Anishinaabe or Chippewa. Small groups from other bands of Native people live here as well, but those are the 2 who have been around the most. In 1786, the United States established the first Native American reservation. And from that point on, the official approach to working with for the government to work with the Native Americans was to push them from their ancestry home onto reservations. And the main goal for that were to bring the Native Americans under the government control, so we could tell them what to do. It was to minimize conflict between the natives who had been here and the settlers who were new and coming to the land. And it was also to encourage Native Americans to take on some of the ways of the white man. The land the Native people lived on was, as you would expect, the best land they could find. It was usually next to a river or a large lake that we need water to live, right? And they used it to fish. They used it for transportation, using their canoes to get from point A to point B and point C, and meeting up with other Native people. The water also allowed them to take the rich soil that they had on their lands and keep it healthy so that they could plant vegetables and whatever they had the ability to plant. And it kept the land healthy, and that meant the wildlife too, because the Native people, like many early settlers, had to rely on the land for food. And so the animals, the healthier they were, the more abundant they were, the more food there was to go around. So, but it was that great land that the government coveted. So when they came up with this idea to group the Native people together and put them on kind of a desolate island of land, they gave them lesser land. The land was not rich with nutrients. It was not near water. It was often the places people couldn't grow food or anything. And it was pretty desolate for the most part, especially compared to the land that they gave up. So many Native people still live on reservations. Excuse me. There are 7 Ojibwe reservations in northern Minnesota, 4 Dakota reservations in the southern part of Minnesota, and there are more than 9,000 Ojibwe people who live, who have Ojibwe ancestry, who live in Minneapolis. And in St. Paul, there are about 3,000 Ojibwe, Dakota, and Winnebago people who live there. Outside of Minnesota, each state in the Union has some Native people in their population, ranging anywhere from 20% of the population, which is Alaska. They have Alaskan Inuits, and about 0.5% of the population in New Jersey has any Native ancestry. Currently, the population of the American Indian in the United States is about 7 million. That's 3 million people fewer than were here when the settlers were settling. So the Native Americans have the highest poverty level in any of the major racial groups in the United States. So this is the part of the visit where we would expect me to present someone and interview them. And I had that option, but I felt a little awkward asking someone to speak for the 574 federally recognized Native tribes in the United States. So instead, I found a video about questions that are asked of Native people, and 4 or 5 folks from different Native populations took the time to answer them. I hope you find this interesting. I hope you found that video and the opinions expressed by our Native brothers and sisters in it to be interesting, and perhaps you learned something. Now, here's the problem. By not having someone to interview, I did not have anyone to share my brownies with. So I have to go find somebody who wants to eat these. And while I do that, why don't you take a look at some of the opportunities that are available for you to learn more about our Native brothers and sisters. Thank you. God's peace.